It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That is brand new stuff from the band White Wizzard. The name of that song is Cocoon. That is from their new album, The Infernal Overdrive. And on the line right now is a guy that's going to send the show into an infernal overdrive. It is the bassist and the leader of White Wizzard. It is Jon Leon. Jon, how are you, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Excellent, man. Much better now that for two reasons. One, that White Wizzard is officially back and we have product in hand. And two, that the band is better than ever, man. It's great to hear.
Yeah, thanks. I feel the same way. It's really great, all the serendipity that's kind of brought all this to fruition. You know, it's great to have, in my opinion, with all due respect to everyone that's been in the band, the singer and lead guitar player that have been the most talented I've ever worked with, and really are the, two fantastic, virtuosos of what they do. To have them and be able to see the vision of the riding through with Wyatt singing and James laying down lead has just been fantastic.
No doubt, man. Well, Jon, let's step backwards a little bit. Let's talk about these last, 4 years or so. It's been a pretty crazy time for you, and I have to imagine it was a time where you at least considered maybe just saying, all right, this band isn't gonna be the one.
Yeah, I think that after our last lineup, and I think everyone was burnt out. I mean, there's a lot of different factors that have not been, brought to light publicly. A lot of it's BS. But one thing that's for certain is, when you're in a record deal that's not very good, and you're not getting any tour support from, the label, and everyone's trying to, raise money, finance things, and you're just not getting the push that you need, and you've been doing it for a while. And there's a lot of different factors that come into play that make musicians kind of question why the heck they're in this. This industry already is in shambles compared to a lot of others. I mean, actors and athletes are making more money than ever, but musicians, because we can't protect the medium, there's just not a lot of, it's not the most, let's say, financially viable career.
Sure.
So you gotta really be in it for the right reasons with a lot of passion. And I think that, after the last lineup split, it took a while for that passion to come back. I mean, I'm always playing music and writing music, and spend a lot of time doing, my own, just playing acoustic songs and playing flamenco and traveling. And I just kind of got out of it. But then, inevitably these songs come to me, whether it's through jamming, whether it's in my imagination sometimes. These White Wizzard songs just flow out of me. It's just a sum of all my influences and the passion I have for it, I guess. But all of a sudden I started writing songs, and I thought they were some of the best things I'd ever done. They were without question White Wizzard songs, and that's kind of how the seeds to this album were planted. And over a couple of year period, it finally came to fruition.
No doubt. Now I write books, which is a similar medium where you don't get paid anything, and but you keep doing it anyway. And the one thing that you just said really is interesting to me is that you were able to step away, kind of. I mean, you were still writing, but you were not trying to write toward the project. But then you were able to come back and create something that you felt fit the project. That's something I can't do. I know for me personally, when I step away from it, then I got to go on to a new idea. And what was it that kept you at least somewhat focused on creating material that would emerge as White Wizzard?
I think it just is a matter of, I'm always playing. I never stopped being a musician I think I'll be a musician forever. I don't think I'll ever stop, holding guitars in my hands.
Sure.
and writing lyrics and writing songs. I write poems a lot. A lot of lyrics come out of poetry. Cocoon, the one you just played, is a prime example. And I think that it's hard to describe. I just think it's so ingrained in me. I think that heavy passion for this kind of music, that grew the first times I heard Rush and Iron Maiden and all those kind of life-changing experiences I had with that type of music. It's just in me so deep that, my imagination, the flow, the channeling of it, I guess, just never goes away. Even if I thought I could walk away from writing songs like this, I can't. Even to this day, I'm working on, I've got a couple other types of projects I want to do. And it's funny, when I'm playing guitar, all of a sudden there'll be a riff, and it's like, oh man, you know what I mean? And then all
Sure.
of a sudden I start building a song, right? And it's White Wizzard, you know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
It's weird. It's just, it's something that I think I'm so married to that. It's such a part of the fabric of my being. And it's just such a channel that it just never leaves me. I don't know if it ever will. I'll probably, even if the band doesn't exist, have a bunch of killer, White Wizzard demos sitting somewhere. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'll continue to write stuff like that. And who knows? I may put out stuff forever under White Wizzard, no matter what happens. I'm hoping that, we've been through so much the last 10 years, and to have it all come back together, we're all pretty focused on seeing this through together, and we've grown up, we've learned a lot. We never had great management, which, all the great bands usually seem to have two things, a great relationship with a really good producer, which we have had with that, which is good. And they've had a great manager. And that's the one thing that's been our Achilles heel, I think, over the years, is we never really had a really strong manager. And it's hard to find those guys now, because they're all, again, in sports and in the film industry.
Right.
They're working in those industries because that's where the money's at. A lot of the great managers that used to exist, and great producers for that matter too, have gotten the hell out of the industry because there's not enough money in the music industry to keep their interest. So a lot of bands kind of have to do it themselves now, and it's a different time, and that's a tough gig.
Sure.
You got to be in it for the right reasons, and you can't be in it solely for the for the other things. You got to be in it for the music, and that's why White Wizzard still exists, because I think all of us that are involved, and me especially, no matter what's been said about us, whatever, we don't care. A lot of it's bullshit anyway. But I think at the core, we all came into it for the right reasons, and we're still in it because of the music, and we have a lot of passion for it. And I think that's exemplified in the record. I think you can hear that we really passionately wrote this. I passionately wrote it. Everybody passionately executed it. And I feel everybody brought their best work to date, and we feel like it's our best thing we've ever done. So everyone's really stoked.
Sure. Now, was it difficult? And let me preface this by saying that I know a lot of other bands that have gone their separate ways and come back, and then they've had internal struggles because the members want it to be the way it was the first time. Now, you carried on the band with different members, but you kept the band alive. And now the other guys, the original guys, are back. Did it come back together to be in an equal partnership, or does it come with some changes, whether it's business or the way you guys put songs together or whatnot, that are different than the first time, that might be better, not worse? I'm not saying that it's necessarily worse, just that it would be different than, as if you guys had never gone your separate ways in the first place.
Well, I think from a creative standpoint, it's actually really remains the same. There's a very seamless chemistry we have that everyone's really cool with. Basically, I write the songs. I write, in the studio, I play all my rhythm and bass guitars. I lay the foundation. I just hand off the lead work to my lead virtuoso, say in LaRue, right? So I know where I want all the leads. So I'll basically just tell him, hey, lead here. And I let him completely compose the leads. I give him some, general ideas sometimes of the vibe I want. But so I build the foundation. I write it all. I write all the lyrics and the bass vocal melodies. Then I hand off a demo with me singing to Wyatt. And then Wyatt makes them his own. I always give Wyatt co-credit on vocal melodies, because even though I write him at the core with the lyrics, Wyatt has this way, and it's beautiful because we don't have it's very seamless. And this is the third record full length we've done together. It's always been the same. He'll take them. He just interprets what I'm doing great. He makes them his own. When I'm done laying down my rhythm and bass parts and any additional harmony guitars or instruments, whatever, while the lead guy's working on his leads, Wyatt will come in and the vocals will start. And I hand off the demos to my producer, Ralph, and to Wyatt, and I get the hell out of their way, because I know they're going to interpret everything and they're going to make it great. And they take the reins from there with the bass vocal melodies, and then they craft it into, Wyatt Anderson making it his own. And he just sings with so much emotion, passion, and depth. And he just does it right. I mean, I can think of maybe one or two times in the 3 records we've done where they've played me back a vocal melody or a thing him what he did. And I'm like, oh, try it this way, try it that way. They literally just it's a great mutual respect and seamless thing that we have there, to where they're able to take what I write, and then I'm able to get out of their way, and we have a great final product. And then, LaRue lays down all the leads, and then Ralph mixes it. And again, in the mixing process as well, we pretty much stick it with Ralph and I as far as the say, because one thing I learned, especially in the first lineup, one thing that really was difficult on the GTO lineup was we all, especially the singer, drummer, and myself, had very different visions how things should sound. And that could be very difficult in the band. And luckily with us, we all kind of have a shared agreement on how everything should sound. And, Wyatt and LaRue trust the process of Ralph mixing and myself to get it there. And that's basically how it works. And again, with Ralph, very rarely does he send me a mix. And there's maybe minor tweaks, like I'll say, a little bit more of this, that. But for the most part, Ralph nails it so well. We have such a mutual, I think, respect and understanding of what we want it to be, that it's a very easy process. It's actually making records with Ralph and Wyatt and then this time with LaRue is an absolute joy. It's very easy, and that part of the process is always very good. And on the business side, I mean, I've learned over the years. I was in an exclusive deal with Eric as a songwriter after the GTO lineup broke up, because it was really just me until I found Wyatt and started building it from there. So I've always had individual deals with my members, and I think that, sometimes you can get a little, lazy on that side of things when you're so focused on the music side. It's not my forte per se. And so over time I've learned, I think we have deals in place together now that we all feel really good about, and that always helps things, and more maturity and understanding and communication, which is very important. Having the right guys, the right chemistry, where there's not a dark horse or a bad seed in there, so to speak, throwing things out of whack. We've all got a good flow going right now. We all respect each other. It's communicative. It's friendly. And that's a really important thing, because I think all the great bands too that make it through, whether it's Maiden, Rush, whatever, they seem to find that. And it doesn't come without growing pains.
Sure.
When you don't have a manager, it's tough. It's really tough when you don't have a manager, and that can obviously throw things into disarray when you don't have someone who can rattle. Musicians all have passion. We all have egos to a point, but I think passion too. And when you mix passion and ego together in a marriage like that, it's tough. And you add that. The other thing I'll say is I'm very particular with the type of musicians I will bring into the project. I'm a perfectionist. I'm very picky. They got to be really, really good.
Sure.
And the thing is we weren't generating much money. I was in a bad record deal where I wasn't making any money off that. No online merch revenues. They were taking all that. We literally were in a situation where there's not much income. There's not a huge push. We're not getting tour support. So it's hard to keep, really talented musicians and also have a say of how it's going to go in your band when you can't pay them a certain amount of money.
Right.
If you can't pay them a good salary, or there's not enough money being generated in revenues, and you still want to have control of the vision, one thing I've learned through the process, I've had some great musicians come through, but it's hard to keep them around. They want to go start their own thing. They want to do that, and that's cool, and I've had some guys go and do their own thing, and I'm very supportive of it and still in touch with them, and whether it's Peter Ellis and, Monument and his whole thing over there, and other guys too. I think that I understand, and I get it. And I do the same thing, and that's what I did. When I started White Wizzard, I was playing in other bands and going on tour, and I wasn't really able to create my vision, and there wasn't really enough money in it to make it, worth me staying out there playing music. It just wasn't my music. And I can respect that. It's one thing if guys leave and they go join a crappy cover band just to make a salary. I wouldn't really respect that
right.
that much. But if they're going out and they're making original music and doing their thing, and that's what they want to do, then great. And that's why, Peter Ellis and Louis Stephens, when their heart was being in the UK anyway, and it was hard for them to stay in LA. And when Wyatt wanted to come back, it was a mutual, hey man, Peter wanted to do his thing in London, and he'd gotten a good jolt from the single we did with White Wizzard, and we did some touring with him over there, and I was like, dude, go for it, and he was like the same, and we still are always messaging, and I'm always supportive of what he's doing, and vice versa, and I think that's cool. There's a little tree of musicians that have come out of that. No matter what people say, a lot of people think I fire everybody, which is not the case at all. But
right.
You know, that's what it's kind of fun. We always laugh when we read that. You know, even Wyatt has had to say on his Facebook that I never fired him. You know, he had his family things and other reasons he couldn't tour, and a lot of things people don't know about. You know,
right.
that made it hard because there wasn't enough money. I mean, you booked 3 months of tours. He had a 16-year-old girl to support at the time, and you know, the tours were only paying, you know, a lot of these headline acts, they don't pay crap to the opening acts. And, you know, a lot of bands go out there for the opportunity, but you go out there, you're getting $200 a show when you're going around Europe. I mean, if anybody knows how much it costs to take 5 guys to Europe, you know, you're always going to be in the red when you're doing that. So no one's making any money, you know.
Right.
You can't, it's hard. If you've got any responsibilities, it's hard to justify going out there 2-3 months and touring. So
right.
we're being very also smart about that this time too. We're kind of baby stepping back into that process. We might just do a week here, 2 weeks there. And if an opportunity with a big act comes up, you know, we've kind of got a bottom line and we're going to stick to it because we know it takes us. That's another thing you learn when you go out there naively with a lot of passion and, you know, a lot of record labels, everybody takes advantage of, you know, even promoters, local promoters in LA even do this, of bands' passion for the dream, you know, so they know they'll do things for almost nothing. So you have to be willing to at some point say, okay, well, I'm not going to, you know, whore myself and do this for nothing. You have to be somewhat, you don't have to be Gene Simmons about it, but you have to be somewhat, you have to take a page from that book. You've got to be somewhat stand your ground and somewhat be willing to say no if you can't make a certain amount so everybody can make some money. If everybody can't make, you know, $100 a night after playing a show on the road and go home with a couple grand after being on the road for a month, you know, it's hard to say yes.
Right.
You know?
Sure.
So that's kind of where we're at now. We're being smart about it. We're definitely gonna, you know, get out there and do it, but we're also being very, you know, steadfast in what we're willing to do and what we're not willing to do. And I think that we've grown and learned enough that helps us, you know, make better business decisions, which will also help the band's morale. Because nothing's worse than getting out there and you being on the road for 2 months. No one's made any money. You know, that makes people feel like it's, you know, you just get negative connotations. You get cynical.
Sure.
And you don't want anybody, once you're cynical in music, you're dead. So it's a very important thing that we always feel like we're fresh, and that's why we're being, you know, everybody understands that, which is great. And I think that's really one thing that's, you know, that we've matured on and grown with that is going to help us.
No doubt. You know, you touched on something that we constantly bitch about here on the show, and that's that the bands that are doing this kind of music do not, the ones that are established, there's obviously a big resurgence for the classic type of metal now, but these bands are not taking out the bands that are like the next wave. I mean, you see Metallica taking out some new metal band, or you see Iron Maiden with Bullet for My Valentine or whatever. It doesn't make sense that they don't take bands like White Wizzard or Havoc or, you know, or Municipal Waste or something out.
That's funny you touch on that because it's something that I've kind of privately, I don't say much about it, but because I was watching, you know, like Judas Priest, you know, when they went out with the British Steel redo, that's when we were just, you know, getting White Wizzard into full gear. We were recording Over the Top, and I went to go see that show.
Sure.
And it was them and Whitesnake and some frickin' Daddy Warbucks band called Pop Evil.
Right.
And you knew watching them, they were an industry-contrived thing. Somebody's daddy was paying for it. Somebody bought them onto the tour. You just knew that. And I was like, and I remember thinking at the time, I hope, because I knew that we were kind of, you know, we were starting to come up, and Forcer, there was a few bands. I knew that I never wanted to be labeled in the new wave of traditional heavy metal. I always wanted to be like Rush and Expand, et cetera. But at the time, I was cool with being locked in with that, and I thought it was good there was at least some kind of movement. And I was thinking at the time, like, I hope these bands, because Maiden was bringing out their kids' bands. I know Lauren Harris's band had come through with Maiden as well right around the same time. And,
right.
I was like, okay, I really hope that they, you know, they start bringing out some of these new acts. And I was kind of bummed out to see Judas Priest is just going out with Saxon and the guys from Thin Lizzy. I was like, man, like, you know, whatever. Like, it's, you know, I mean, it's good, whatever, I guess. But it's just at some point, I agree. I think that, I mean, fine, bring one of those acts too. But why can't you throw, a couple of new acts even on the bill? Make it a 5-band thing. Fine. If you want to bring those bands by them on, why can't you just throw, a bone? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer is there. Sometimes I wonder, I mean, this is very conspiratorial, but I sometimes wonder if they don't want, bands to take the torch. Maybe they want their legacy to be what they are, and they don't want to, they don't want the other acts to supersede them. Maybe they don't want an act coming out that they're afraid would, steal any of their thunder. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say what the motivation is, but it definitely is kind of the head scratcher as I look around and I wonder why that continues to be the case. Because you're right, across the board, it pretty much is. And it's unfortunate. It is what it is. But sometimes you see it happen. Like I know Anthrax went out and had they did a 6-band tour thing, and they had a couple of newer acts on the bill, et cetera. And I see it happen once in a while, but you would think that the bands would, because it's kind of getting to the end of their deal. Though I will give Black Sabbath credit. A band that was a mutual label mate band of ours that I remember when they were signed, Rival Sons. Mm-hmm. They blew up really well. They I think, to be honest, we were kind of a priority at our label, and once we had so many problems with Wyatt touring, et cetera, and we weren't able to really do it as much as they wanted, they signed Rival Sons and kind of put a lot of their priorities there, and they really did well, and they really blew up, especially in Europe. And Sabbath took Rival Sons' direct support all around Europe and all around the States. But I also am privy to the knowledge, as far as I've heard, they have a really, really great manager. And again, it's still, having a manager that can open doors, that knows a lot of people, is a very key thing. It's one thing White Wizzard never really had. We've had the great producer. We've had everything else. I think we've had the it factor in the songs and everything else. But it's just one of those deals. It's hard to find a good manager that can open doors, that really is a guy that knows people. That if you look at all the great bands, Terry Brown, Rush, Rod Smallwood, Iron Maiden. Mm-hmm. You go down the list. The Eagles, they had Irving Azoff, Right. You go down the list and you look at all these bands, you watch all these documentaries, there was always some killer manager that came on board in the early days that had a vision, that had some money behind them, that had connections. And, I remember even Maiden saying they don't think they could have even done it without Smallwood. And you look at it, and that's the one Achilles heel we've always had. And I think, you need a great manager that can wrestle the egos, wrestle the passion, help the vision be seen through, understands the game, that can open doors. So, Rival Sons got that, but, you got to have good management. And, and sometimes there's a lot of things that come into play, and that's why it's so, it's hard for bands, man. It's hard to get out there because as I've said, the industry is so washed up monetarily that there's just not a lot of great managers left, or great producers, because a lot of the great producers used to make $50,000 a record. Yeah. They're only going to get paid $5,000 a record now. They're like, well, they're so used to making that kind of money, it's not even worth it to them to spend the time. Rock records take time to make. They're not. That's why the industry pushes so much sampled music now. Right. It's not an accident that that's what's pushed to the kids, that's not what's pushed as the trend, because the industry always does that. They make a trend with kids. That's what sets the sales line. It costs pennies to make a sampled record. Have a guy come in on an SM7 mic and rap over some samples or sing some hip-hop vibes, throw it in the Pro Tools, pitch corrected, boom, put it out. That's the types of albums the industry wants to be popular, because rock albums and good records, they cost a lot of money to make. It's not easy to make those records. And so there's not a lot of great producers left, and there's not a lot of money on the table to make them. So all the records like ours are being made, with a lot of passion on a budget. We're just lucky that Ralph was able to work with our budget and that he's got such great talent. And I think even Ralph, our producer, wrestles with the amount of money that can be made now compared to what he was used to making even 15 years ago, let alone now. It's a tough gig for everybody.
Sure. And what's interesting about the producers too is a lot of these guys that have 50 platinum albums on their walls, they know that they can't get that money anymore. So what they do is they use the name recognition that they've earned, and they do stuff with local bands that really don't have any business being in their studios in the first place. You know, I'm not going to shit on them necessarily, but I know for a fact if a local band has $2,500, Beau Hill will do one of their songs because he's Beau Hill that has 40 platinum albums. A lot of bands do it, and you know, again, he's got to eat too. And I get it. I'm certainly not hammering him for it, but it's like the decline of the industry has really cannibalized itself in a lot more ways than people think. It's not just that bands can't afford to be out there anymore. It's bands, it's it's studios, it's producers, it's management, it's everything. It's just sad.
Oh yeah. And I mean, a lot of the guys that are sitting around LA, I mean, I'm not going to say any names, but big time guys, the drummers. I mean, we're talking legends. Okay, all those guys, the same thing. I know guys that they come to LA, they want to make a record, they want like a guest. You know, they pay those guys like $1,000 to play on their records. That's how a lot of those guys make their money. You know, they'll play stuff, whatever. And you're right. There's just so many different ways that it's eat itself. And I think also, you know, one guy who told me years ago, he said he didn't, you know, that there's the radio stations too, you know, he said that it's too bad that, you know, some of the bigger, you know, people in the industry that could make a difference didn't buy some of the records or buy some of the radio stations and do you know, more to protect radio, you know, because it just got bought up, and there's just so many different factors you could go on and on. I mean, at the end of the day, the worst part of it, though, still comes down to, you know, and I know that you know, it's a tough gig with you know, trading music online, because you have the one side of the coin that get all pissy and like, it's music, it's art, man, it should be free, bro, and if you're trying to charge for it, somehow you're corporate and you're bad and, you know, you're evil. You have a certain niche of fans that's how they justify it to themselves, getting the music free. And so it's hard to battle those two thought processes of just, well, hard to battle free.
Right.
And it's hard to battle that process of thinking. And you have people that care about paying for the band stuff and they do it, but it seems to be a very small amount in contrast. And people are lazy, you know, it's just in this day and age, it's like if it's there, they're just going to get it and listen to it. Like a lot of people don't even think about it anymore just because it's become the norm.
Sure.
So, you know, when Lars Ulrich was out there, you know, whether you like him or not, when he was out there warning people about this, he was actually right. And so, someone who's been in the industry now for 10 years, who's fought through this process and seen how it all works, it's a sad reality that unless they come up with a way, you know, like software or something to protect the musical medium where there's no way to unlock it or trade it, but it looks pretty impossible. I've talked to, you know, experts that tell me that there's just no way they're ever going to be able to do it. You know, it's just the reality of the one negative connotation that comes with, you know, the modern age of computers and the internet, et cetera, is that's what happened to music. And it's a sad reality, but they don't have before, when they had a, you know, a vinyl record and that was the only way you could get it.
Right.
Or they had a CD and that was the only way you could get it, and it wasn't easy to copy a CD. That was when the industry made money. That's when it was profitable. That's when it was like the movie industry. And that's why all those bands back then were getting $1 million advances and their asses wiped every mistake they make, and managers all over the place, because there was money for everybody to make. So of course it was great, but you know, that's all dried up and that doesn't exist anymore. And you know, that's why it's, you know, music is really, you know, that's been that's probably been the biggest cancer of the industry. And then you have all of these side effects from it, and everybody's always asking, why does music suck now? But you really don't have to look too far. The answers are right there in front of you.
Right, no doubt, man. Well, one record that does not suck is this brand new one, Infernal Overdrive. It is an amazing record from White Wizzard. Sounds like White Wizzard that you remember, but it's a lot more full sounding, at least to these ears, and a lot meatier, I guess. Not that the other stuff was weak. It certainly wasn't, but this is like, you know, it's rare that a band that has a few albums behind them comes through with their best thing. But I truly believe this is the best release that you've done, and it's one people should hear. What do people
Thanks,
need?
man.
What do people need to know about this one, man? That they don't know, or where can they find out about it, or get information on you guys, etc.
Well, M Theory Audio is the label, and they can find the stuff there. Of course, our Facebook, Facebook/White Wizzard, the WhiteWizzardRecords.com should be back up shortly. We're revamping that for the album release. So all those mediums, and just keep an eye on us on YouTube and everywhere else, and just spread the word, man.
All right. Well, why don't we spread the word by letting them hear a little bit of it right now, man? Why don't you pick a song from the record and tell us a quick story about it to wrap this up?
Chasing Dragons is probably all of our favorite. We like Illusions Tears a lot too, but since it's radio, Chasing Dragons is about 3 minutes shorter, so I'll pick that. Deep song. Lyrically, I was going through a lot in a relationship. The lyrics are basically, the term chasing the dragon is what they use for chasing a high, especially heroin. I kind of tie in the lyrics to be that love can be like that too. We're kind of chasing dragons, and how the wrong love can lead you down the rabbit hole like a bad heroin addiction can. And that's kind of what it's about. You can read it poetically and take your own thing from it. And it's musically really diverse and has some great deep stuff and great lead work by LaRue, and I love it. It's a great tune. All
right, well, let's check it out right now. It's brand new stuff from White Wizzard right here on your Classic Metal Show.